So, now I would like to invite Mr. Vikas Tiwari, Director, Legal and Company Secretary from Make My Trip. Mr. Tiwari is an astute professional with over 20 years of experience in secretarial and legal functions, specializing in corporate law for Indian, APAC, LATAM and EU entities, as well as NSE, BSE and US SEC compliances. He excels in developing legal strategies, conducting board and investor meetings, and managing stock exchanges compliances. Professions in drafting and negotiating commercial agreements, Mr. Vikas also liaises effectively with government departments and regulatory authorities. His exceptional relation management skills ensure strong business relations with statutory auditors, legal counsels, and external agencies.
Thank you. Thank you for nice words about me and highlighting my professional achievements and all. Thank you. So good morning to everyone, and I feel privileged to be a part of this, wonderful discussion we are having at this wonderful place called JNU. So thank you very much, and I feel privileged to be a part of it. So coming about the conscious leadership, and conscious leadership in the field of ESG. And what a tone Professor Tiwari set up for this discussion at this this morning. So coming to the two good examples, everyone who has been a part of has lived in India from childhood, who could easily relate to the kind of personality and the leadership Lord Krishna and Lord Rama's displayed, and we learn a lot from it. But in India or anywhere in the part, a part of this world, any prudent person, if you ask, do you want to be a leader? Everyone would say that yes, I want to be a leader. But actually, what is leadership, right? And that's where people fail to understand, how to develop a leadership and how to become a leader. So I come from a travel industry, right? And I would like to give an example. So in my initial days when I joined Make My Trip, a meeting was set up with my founder, and he the agenda for discussion was that he wanted to set up a CSR entity, and what could be the form and other things. That point of time, Make My Trip was not a profit-making entity, and there was no plan at all that in years to come it will be earning a profit. So my question was that why a loss-making company would think of CSR. So I asked the same question to him, and he said that I asked him what areas actually you want to work on. Deep is the name of our founder. So he said that I want to work on responsible tourism. So I understood the concept and all, and later on I could realize that it's not about responsible tourism, but it's about responsible citizenship, right? And that's where I could foresee that there is going to be a paradigm shift, where not only individuals, right, where the corporates are being recognized as a equal citizen of this country, or not only country. And here citizen doesn't mean the boundaries within India. It's going to be a global footprint. In a business world, we know, right, that the entire world is taken as a market, as taken as a place. So that's where the I could foresee the concept of ESG was going to be a part of global discussion. Now keeping it short and crisp, why a company or why an entity would look at a ESG as a and where this comes from, right? So everything, whether you want to be a leader or whether you want to carry any organization, any investor or any of your stakeholder would look at you, whether you have any values, whether there are any anything what actually drives you, right? And that where comes the leadership, right? To the conscience that will come to you as a leader is possible only if you have defined, you have decided the values you will be carrying in your life, right? And that same applies to the corporates and the founders, founders driven organizations. So my point is that if you want to develop conscious leadership, be vigilant about, be very crystal clear about the values you have you want to inculcate in your life and you want to spread in the society. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your address. Now we would like to invite Mr. Irwin Mohammed Akbar. He is a diplomat and trade expert currently serving as Deputy Director of Trade and Industry Corporation at Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Republic of Indonesia. With over 14 years of experience in the foreign service, he has held various roles including counsel in Hong Kong and Saudi Arabia. Mr. Irwin's educational background includes Masters in Defense Management and Bachelors in International Relations. He brings a wealth of knowledge in diplomacy, economic affairs, and Asian cooperation, making significant contribution to Indonesian trade and industry relation in the global stage.
Thank you. Professor Tiwari, the Dean, Professor Sijaria, honorable faculties, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Ambassador of the Republic of Indonesia in New Delhi, India, I would like to extend our sincere gratitude for Atal Bihari Papaji School of Management and Entrepreneurship, Jawaharlal Nehru University, for inviting us and involving us in this very prestigious and important event. It is an honor and privilege for us to address this distinguished discussions and to discuss the shape and future leadership in this summit. And ladies and gentlemen, today we in India, also us in Indonesia, look toward the future in which we envision both countries as a developed nation. But of course, we want it to be not only a developed nation, but also a sustainable and equitable one. Of course, achieving this vision requires, like mentioned by so many speakers, requires fundamental shift, fundamental paradigm, and how we lead, manage, and how we measure success. This summit themes provide a very important roadmap for that goal. In Indonesia, of course, we understand also in India, our government has take significant steps in incorporating the ESG principles, sustainable development goals into our national development plan, and also involving a community-based program into so many program and a mission that having a focus on how we can establish these sustainable development goals, and as mentioned by so many speakers, to give maximum benefits to people, to humanity, to the planets. And we have also learned that the government of India also takes so many significant action plan and also programs that involving, as mentioned, so many companies and businesses, and we have so much to learn to collaborate in establishing our common goals. Ladies and gentlemen, this year we commemorate 75 years of bilateral relations between Indonesia and India. 25 years we have been in relations. This long and historical relations should also extend to cooperation and collaboration in these fields. And when I heard explanation from Professor Tiwari just now, how he used illustration from Bharata Yuddha, Ramayana, Arjuna, etc., I understand it completely because I am familiar with the story. because I have heard, I read the story from when I was a child. That is to illustrate how close the social cultural relation between Indonesia and India. So to repeat the cooperation between Indonesia and Indonesia, of course, we also need to be focus our attention to our topic today, embracing the ESG. That is why I have talked with some professor just before this event on how the GNU and also universities in Indonesia can start to explore cooperation and collaboration, and also of course companies and businesses in implementing the ESG principles in their daily operations. So to conclude, I would like to of course repeat that we should commit to our vision to the sustainable development guided by the principle of ESG. I think together we can create a prosperous, equitable and sustainable future for our future generation to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your words. Now we would like to invite CS Deepak Jain, sir, Summit Chair, Chairman, DMA ESG Committee. With over 28 years of experience, he has excelled as a corporate secretary, serving as VP CS at United Limited, and later on as an advisor. Passionate about learning and development, he transitioned into HR training and development, delivering presentations on topics like good governance, leadership, work-life balance. Currently, he offers comprehensive corporate law consultancy services, specializing in Companies Act, SEBI Act, and IBC. His dedication to continuous learning is evident through membership in esteemed associations and committees. His qualifications include BCom, PG in Diploma in Personal Management, and fellowship from ICSI.
It's okay. Thank you. Thanks for the kind introduction. And, the Friends DMA ESG Committee, it was constituted last year, and since then this ESG Committee has been doing various sessions, various awareness sessions at various platforms, including schools and colleges also. In various colleges, in the last 1 year, we did at least more than 20 colleges, and wherever possible, it is our drive. And then today's topic is consciousness. This topic, as we discussed with the here in the school, that we normally discuss sustainability, we discuss corporate governance, we discuss CSR. But at the end of the day, we found that awareness has not catching up. We have been discussing good governance for the last 30 years. Sureshji is here, and then but still we find loopholes. Still we find in each month we find in the newspaper there's something is wrong with such corporate and whatever. So we wanted to discuss consciousness, and unconsciousness. If a person is unconscious, then that means, for example, if a leader wages a war against another country, so he has not taken that decision in consciousness because he has not realized the consequences of that war. Human lives, loss of human and environment will be suffering, and then the loss of money also. As per one estimate, more than $700 billion have been spent in various one war. This has been going on for the last 1 year. That amount could have been spent for eradicating poverty in EU, in African Union. You know, if you read about the African Union, there are lot of poverty there. So we take various decisions, as a leader, which are unconscious decisions. And then जैसे सर ने बताया कृष्णा के बारे में, I normally give examples from Gita and Buddha also. When someone asked 2500 years ago Gautam Buddha that are you God? He said, no, I am not God. Just my consciousness has awakened. So the consciousness is so important that he said कि मैं भगवान नहीं हूँ, मेरी consciousness जाग गई है. So if we are conscious, if our higher self is, I mean, if I'm moving towards my higher self, so I take all the decisions in the right perspective. I see that my decision is not affecting others, and this is a very challenging time, my dear friends. We all know, because of various things. Climate crisis is a huge problem. We will see how it will unfold. It will be very difficult to be a just transit. We all know जो transition बड़ा difficult रहेगा, because various jobs will be lost and various new jobs need to be created. And then we have a challenge of artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence, climate crisis, infotech and biotech. These all will create a new India, and this change will be very fast. हम लोगों को मेरे ख्याल से इन फ्यूचर में अपनी लाइफ में 3-4 कैरियर्स बदलने पड़ेंगे. इतनी तेजी से एनवायरनमेंट वर्ल्ड चेंज हो रहा है, because of technology, because of climate, because and this pandemic. बार महीने में एक न्यूज़ टीवी पे आ जाती है कि एक और वायरस पड़ा है, and this could be dangerous than the earlier virus. So we have to be conscious and we have to build ourselves to face any future challenges, and the responsibility lies to all of you. I was reading the profile of the participants and speakers. They are all leaders in their perspective. They are company secretaries, they are cost accountants, they are members from the ISTD, who is a training and development organization who train the individuals. Deepak ji are here. So you need to develop yourself to guide the masses. ये responsibility हम सब की है, friends. So that is why the topic being chosen discussion with this school and the JNU. And friends, 2023 was the hottest year so far in this world of 1 lakh years history. And 2024 recently we faced various crises, climate crisis. In Afghanistan we said in the last 1 month. In Afghanistan, we experienced flood, worst flood. Thailand, heat strokes. It killed more than 100 people in Thailand. First time this happens. Forest fires in Uttaranchal and other parts of the India and in the abroad also. It is creating havoc. And then uneven weather in India. जहाँ rain की ज़रूरत है वहाँ rain नहीं हो रही, जहाँ ज़रूरत नहीं है वहाँ हो रही है. In the first week of May, we saw snowfalls in some part of the Himachal Pradesh. In the first week of May. So this is uneven weather, my dear friends, and then again responsibility lies to all of you. Even in South Brazil there was flooding, Russia there was flooding. So we all need to awake ourselves. We need to find the solutions. And I appreciate again JNU for taking this topic. And then I appreciate ICSI who has joined. Their leadership is clear. That anything on sustainability, good governance, CSR, they really support us. And I appreciate Suresh ji because he is the council member heading the leadership in ICSI. And then ICMAI, Gupta ji यहाँ पे हैं, तो they are supporting this, and Track Council, CSR Times, many organizations, speakers, जिनसे भी हमने request करी है, speakers से, participants से, they are all here. I really appreciate. So my dear friends, if we again go to the consciousness, we all need to change our lifestyles also. It is not a question कि मेरे पास पैसा है या नहीं. It is a question of survival now. So I recently bought one car. It was a hybrid car. So someone said कि when I was distributing a sweet that भगवान करे 2 साल बाद एक बड़ी गाड़ी लें आप. तो मैंने कहा मेरे को क्या करनी है बड़ी गाड़ी है. Why should I purchase a 2500cc car if I can manage it with a 1500cc car, and that was a hybrid car technology which is emitting less pollution. So there is no point if my job does not require that I need a superior vehicle of 2500cc. I should not go for it. And the students and all should have electric vehicles. And then eating habits भी हम लोगों को change करनी पड़ेंगी. We need to see कि which food is requiring more energy. So we need to change our eating habits also. Our lifestyles, clothes, and we need to shift to the circular economy. We call it recycling. We call it reducing the use. We need to change our lifestyles. We need to waste. We need to minimize the waste. We need to reduce the consumption of plastic. प्लास्टिक को हम जितना अवॉइड कर सकें वो जरूरी है माय डियर फ्रेंड्स। अपने घरों में जहाँ पर भी आप देख सकें कोशिश करें, नहीं तो 50 साल बाद 25 साल बाद ही ये होगा कि हमारे स्टोमक में यू विल फाइंड माइन्यूट प्लास्टिक्स, बिकॉज इन द समुंदर इफ यू सी इन द ओशन, इफ यू रीड 25% of the weight of the ocean is plastic. We threw plastics and it finds species in the ocean. 25% of the plastics goes there. How it goes there, I mean, so friends, consciousness, unconsciousness, and for the last 10 years I have been doing various studies. I found that when we are slaves to our senses, जब हम सिर्फ अपने 5 senses के ही slave रहते हैं, then we are more unconscious, then we are more unsustainable. Because we are not able to control ourselves, we do waste, we eat, and then we do various other things which leads to various unsustainably unconsciousness. So it is very important, at least the youngs को तो मैं नहीं इतना बोलता, but when you reach 50 plus, then we should develop the habit to control our senses and move towards higher consciousness. जैसे सर ने गीता की बात करी, बुद्धा, हमको सोचना चाहिए कि अगर जो किसी ने बोला कि यार हम महात्मा थोड़ी हैं, हम क्यों अपने आप को डेवलप करें। तो ऐसा if बुद्धा has developed himself 100%, अगर जो हम 10% भी अपने आप को डेवलप करें ना उस लेवल पे, so we can create a heaven, I believe, in India and the world. 10% भी अगर जो हम अपने आप को उसमें डेवलप करें। So friends, and ego and unconsciousness, these are two similar words. If we have ego, we are unconscious. Because ego की वजह से ही वार होती है. All the conflicts happens because of ego, I believe. All the conflicts happens because of ego. So friends, the last step I would say that we all need to evolve ourselves, develop ourselves. Leaders हम हैं, हमारी responsibility है सोसाइटी को आगे ले जाने की। जो challenges हैं हमको देख, company secretaries, they are key managerial persons. I again and again recommend that आप leader हैं तो आपकी responsibility है कि हम masses को develop करें। सबसे पहले अपने आप को develop करें। We are having another round table conference after 15 days. हमने उसका टॉपिक रखा है सेल्फ एंड सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट। तो किसी ने पूछा इसका टॉपिक ये क्यों रखा आपने, तो ऐसा कि सेल्फ पहले अपने आप को डेवलप करो तब आप सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट में जाओगे। इट इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट कि हमको ये भी देखना है कि मैंने अपने आप को कितना डेवलप किया है। सो एज यूजुअल इन द एंड आई यूज टू request all the participants to take a pledge. So here again I will request all the participants to take a pledge. I will request and before that I will make one announcement that here anyone who thinks that he or she has been doing, either he is a student or whatever, he or she has been doing something good on climate, on sustainability, then please give your names to Kavita and Jyoti. We will acknowledge them at the valedictory session. I repeat this. आप उनको अपनी पर्ची दीजिए कि आप अच्छा कर रहे हैं, हम एक्नॉलेज करेंगे। तो मैनी टाइम्स मैंने ये भी देखा है सर कि कई बार कुछ लोग अच्छा करते हैं पर उनको एक्नॉलेजमेंट नहीं मिलती और फिर वो अपना छोड़ते हैं कि छोड़ो यार कुछ हो नहीं रहा, कुछ फायदा तो हो नहीं रहा, हम नहीं कर पा रहे। सो इट इज़ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट कि वी गिव एक्नॉलेजमेंट हूज़एवर डूइंग गुड वर्क। तो आई विल रिक्वेस्ट जो भी थोड़ा बहुत भी आप कर रहे हैं उसको दीजिए कविता एंड ज्योति को। वी विल एक्नॉलेज योर कंट्रीब्यूशन। हो सकता है हम आज एक्नॉलेज करें जेएनयू में, जेएनयू की एक अलग रेपुटेशन है, अगर जो हम आज एक्नॉलेज करें तो हो सकता है आप अपने आप को नेक्स्ट टाइम में कुछ और अच्छा कर पाए, और अच्छा कर पाए। ऐसे ही ह्यूमन बीइंग डेवलप होते हैं, ऐसे ही ह्यूमन बीइंग डेवलप होते हैं। मैनी टाइम्स आई फाउंड दैट समवन केम टू मी वंस, वन फादर होता है ना, पेरेंट्स की एक चिंता रहती है बच्चों को क्रिटिसाइज करने की। तो सर जो दीपक जी मेरा बच्चा जो है ना मतलब बिल्कुल नालायक है, पढ़ता नहीं है, ये वो लॉट ऑफ मैंने उनको से कहा कि आप अच्छा मेरी बात मानोगे अगर जो मेरे से पूछ रहे हो तो कि हाँ, कि आज के बाद में बच्चे की तारीफ करना शुरू कर दो and to see after 3 months क्या होगा, magic will happen when you appreciate someone. It really works. He develops. So we will acknowledge the person who are doing really good. And now I will request that and हमारे पास टाइम है तो 5 मिनट की हम एक वीडियो रन करेंगे सस्टेनेबिलिटी पे, ESG पे। सबकॉन्शियस में वो जाता है, जब अपने घरों पे कुछ एक्शन लेते हैं तो वो दिमाग में याद दिलाता है कि यार आपने प्लेज ली है। तो अगर 10% भी वो फर्क पड़ा तो 10% 20% में ही सब कुछ हो जाता है। So friends, we all the participants, please take your hands forward and do it sincerely, please. Please do it sincerely. आपको शर्माने की जरूरत नहीं है. We all the participants of this summit hereby commit to integrating sustainability into our leadership and organizational strategies. We pledge to drive progress towards a sustainable and equitable world. By taking this pledge, we commit ourselves as leader to be conscious of our impact on the planet. We promise to uphold these commitments and to inspire others to join us in this crucial endeavor. Thank you friends. बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद. Now I will request for a video to be done. मेरा से वहाँ की लाइट क्लोज कर दें. वहाँ की लाइट क्लोज कर दें. वहाँ की लाइट क्लोज कर दें. Anyone?
Seen from space,
Please
our
close the
planet
lights.
looks calm,
कर सकते हैं तो
magnetic, focused on rotating and revolving around the sun. But when you zoom in, it's a different story altogether. The planet that nurtured the human race for billions of years is now at its mercy. Firstly, humans overpopulated the planet. We understand that every life is precious, but there are 8 billion of us on Earth. Experts say that we are way too many. Way too many more than this planet can sustainably carry. Many say that the planet has a capacity of 9 to 10 billion people, and we are closer to hitting this mark than we think. In fact, there will be 10 billion people on this planet in about 33 years. Currently, humanity is using the equivalent of 1.75 Earths to provide for itself. This means we're living on one planet but consuming the resources of almost 2 planets. We are exploiting resources like we're never going to run out, but more on that later. Coming back to overpopulation, how many humans can this planet sustain? Well, the planet reached its limit 53 years ago. In 1970, there were 3.7 billion people on the planet, less than half the population of today, and just about enough for the planet to sustain. Ever since then, humans are living on what's called an ecological debt. This means our annual demand of resources is way more than what our planet can naturally provide in a year. This is a loan of sorts, and who will repay it? Our children and grandchildren and their grandchildren. That is, if we leave anything on this planet for them to have. In the 19th century, the UK economist Thomas Malthus shared his perspective on overpopulation. He argued that populations inevitably expand until they outgrow their available food supply. He believed that disease, famine, war, or calamity would reverse the population growth. We understand that Malthus was a controversial personality, but his pessimism on overpopulation may hold some truth. Now, let's talk about the most important natural resource, water, or maybe we should say fresh water. Humans cannot live without drinking water longer than 3 days. We get fresh water from glaciers, lakes, reservoirs, ponds, and streams. Fresh water is central to our being. We drink it, we use it to grow crops, we use it in the manufacturing and energy industries. Fresh water prevents erosion. It provides natural protection from flooding. And do you know when we are going to run out of fresh water? Experts say in 16 years. Yes, we are likely to run out of fresh water in less than 2 decades. How do we prevent it? We need to drastically reduce our consumption. We need to stop the continuous exploitation and pollution of our freshwater bodies. Needless to say, easier said than done. What about soil? Soil essentially puts food on our plate. If there's no soil, there's no food. It naturally purifies water, protects us from floods and tackles droughts. Basically, it's our life support system. Humans have managed to ruin soil as well. Deforestation, overgrazing, intensive cultivation. These are just a few practices that have caused some irreversible harm to the soil. We say irreversible because it takes hundreds of thousands of years to form an inch of topsoil. Topsoil is one of the most important elements in food production. With over 8 billion mouths to feed, we need to double our food production, but resources are scarce. We are losing 75 billion tons of topsoil in a year. What about air? No good news there either. The air that we breathe is dangerously polluted. According to the World Health Organization, 9 out of 10 people breathe polluted air, and it adds up. In order to cater to over 8 billion people, we need industries. These industries produce goods that we think we need to go about our daily lives. In that process, industries pump out dirty emissions. They mix with the air and enter our lungs. Air pollution is called a silent killer. It's the 4th leading contributor to early death. The current levels of greenhouse gas emissions are very high. In 2021, it was predicted that our planet has about 11 years to cut emissions if it wants to avoid dire climate conditions. There is a 50% chance that temperatures will rise by 1.5 degrees Celsius by 2033. By 2043, it will jump by 1.7 degrees Celsius. And by 2054, the temperature will rise by 2 degrees Celsius. And when that happens, the world will witness catastrophic conditions. Nearly 3 billion people will likely slip into chronic water scarcity. Now, let's try to answer an important question. How long until global warming makes our planet uninhabitable? About 30 to 50 years. This isn't our projection. NASA says that some regions of the planet will not be habitable in 50 years' time due to climate change. So yes, our planet looks mighty, but the devil is in the detail. We are turning the planet into a giant ball of trash. We're making the planet sicker. Our aim here is not to alarm you or instill fear. Our aim is to educate you about what's going on outside the comfort of your home and how it might impact you. Mahatma Gandhi once said, "There's enough for everyone's need, but not for everyone's greed." Our greed has driven us to a point of no return. And if projections are to be believed, the doomsday is just around the corner.
Address an informative presentation. Now,
We have come to the end of a wonderful inaugural session. On behalf of Atal Bihari Vajpayee School of Management and Entrepreneurship, the Delhi Management Association and the entire fraternity of both these institutions, I extend my most sincere thanks firstly to our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Santishri Dhulipuri Pandit in absentia, our Rector 1 of JNU, Professor S.C. Garkoti, our Dean, Professor Hiraman Tiwari, for guiding us throughout the event and for such an enlightening inaugural address. And finally, to all our esteemed speakers for sparing their valuable time for the inaugural session. Thank you so much.
to continue with the felicitation, we would request Mr. Deepak Jain sir to kindly felicitate Professor Hiraman Tiwari, Dean ABV SME JNU.
Thank you so much. Very kind. Thank you.
I request and also to felicitate Mr. Vikas Tiwari. Ma'am,
इस बारात के दूल्हे आप हैं।
now we
Sir, please join for the group photograph.
photograph. I request all the panelists to come forward, please.
आइए सर। अरविंद
The session will be chaired by Mr. Praveen Kern, Group Head of the Sustainability and the CSR Spark Minda, the renowned CSR and the sustainability leader. He has received the Mahatma Award 2022 and the National CSR Award 2029 and the ICSI National CSI Award 2021, recognized as one of the 25th most influential CSR leader in India. Praveen is a member of CII and the CSR committee and serves on expert and panel in Indian Institute of Corporate Affairs ICC.
Our next panelist is Dr. Sakshi Sharma. She is an assistant professor at ABVSME JNU. She holds a PhD in finance from FMS, University of Delhi, and specializing in market evaluation, risk assessment and base norm challenges for Indian banks. With 8 years of experience in teaching and research, she contributed significantly to academia. She has taught in prestigious institutions like Shahid Bhagat Singh College, Shahid Sukhdev College of Business Studies, University of Delhi. Dr. Sharma's expertise lies in finance, evident in her extensive publication and teaching engagements. Our next panelist is Dr. Shruti Sharma. She is an assistant professor at Terry School of Advanced Studies and researcher, consultant of strategy and business sustainability. Dr. Shruti Sharma is a doctorate in business management and postgraduate in marketing and strategy management. Dr. Shruti volunteer a mentor for Udyan Shalini program. She trains and guides Gedla selected for scholarship by the government for the program.
Thank you very much. How much time do we have for this panel? Very much for coming today here for such a significant discussion that we have on sustainability. And I'm here with my two co-panelists, Dr. Shruti and Dr. Sakshi. I welcome both of you. I also would like to welcome all the delegates and would like to thank JNU for giving this opportunity to all of us. Developing understanding on ESG principles and their significance on modern business practices. We are talking about this topic when we are also trying to look at India as 5th most powerful economy. And these things are correlated. How this is correlated? Let me tell you. First, let's look at the Government of India's Vision 2047, India at 100. Where Government of India thought of the roadmap, and the roadmap is called Panch Pran. If you look at Panch Pran, one of the roadmaps to reach to the stage of developed India 2047, India at 100, can also be achieved through climate action. And this climate action is what? The climate action is for sustainability. Sustainability of environment, the planet where we live in, sustainability of the people. And therefore this topic becomes quite significant for all of us. हमारे बीच आप सभी लोग बैठे हैं, क्या आपने गौर किया है कि पिछले 2 दशकों में जो पेड़ के पत्ते का रंग है वो थोड़ा बदल सा गया है? Have you ever tried speaking to a tree? पेड़ों में भी जान होती है, हम सभी जानते हैं. हम बचपन में पेड़ के पत्ते का जो रंग देखते थे, क्या आपको वही रंग अभी भी नजर आता है? नहीं आता. वो मुरझा सा गया है. मुझे याद है मैं जब छोटा था, नदी का पानी एक अलग ही किस्म का दिखता था. उसमें एक अलग सी शांति थी, स्वच्छता थी, सफाई थी, ट्रांसपेरेंसी थी. उस नदी का रंग भी बदल गया है. क्या हमने गौर किया है? पता नहीं, मुझे ऐसा लगा है कि नदी का भी रंग बदल गया है. मैं रांची से आता हूं, झारखंड से, और वहां पर एक ब्रिज बनाई गई थी, एक पुल बनाया गया था जो स्वर्णरेखा नदी के ऊपर से गुजरती थी। और मैं जब भी उस पुल को पार करता था, उस नदी को देखकर काफी खुश होता था। पिछले कुछ दिनों में मैं एक बार फिर से रांची गया था, वो पुल भी थी, उस नदी की रेत तो दिख रही थी मगर उस नदी में पानी नहीं था। तो बचपन की वो याद, आई कुड नॉट retrospect that memory right here because वो नदी सूख गई थी। मैंने बचपन में जो कबूतर देखे थे उसके रंग भी अलग थे, कबूतरों का रंग भी बदल गया है। और इंसान को देखिए, हर किसी के चेहरे पर एक सिकन सी आ गई है, एक बेचैनी, एक परेशानी सी आ गई है। हम परेशान हैं, मन शांत नहीं है। और मन की ये जो शांति है ये कई चीजों पर निर्भर करती है। And when we talk about this topic called sustainability, this correlates and this is directly proportional to your मन की शांति also. It will come. मन की शांति तभी आएगी जब सारी चीजें सस्टेन्ड रह रही हों। हम थोड़ी फिलोसॉफिकल हो गए, लेकिन ये मुद्दा है, ये काफी गंभीर मुद्दा है। और आज नहीं सोचेंगे तो अभी थोड़ी देर पहले प्रोफेसर साहब इसी सीट पर बैठे थे, उन्होंने कहा था शाम दाम दंड भेद। तो हम इन सारी चीजों को यदि आज जागृत ना करें, इफ वी डू नॉट एक्टिवेट ऑल ऑफ देम राइट टुडे, द वर्ल्ड इज नॉट गोइंग टू सस्टेन। और किसकी जिम्मेदारी है? कई बार इस मुद्दे पर बात होती है कि ये किसकी जिम्मेदारी है। आम आदमी सोचता है कि ये सरकार की जिम्मेदारी है, मुझे क्या लेना देना इससे कि क्लाइमेट, ये प्लांटेशन, ये पानी, ये सारी चीजें सरकार की जिम्मेदारी है। क्या आपको लगता है कि ये सिर्फ सरकार की जिम्मेदारी है? नो। क्या आपको लगता है ये सिर्फ एनजीओज की जिम्मेदारी है जो पानी पे, कार्बन पे और कई ऐसे मुद्दे हैं जिन पर काम करती है? या आपको लगता है कि वो डिपार्टमेंट्स जो है, मौसम विभाग, जल विभाग, इन विभागों तक ये जिम्मेदारी सीमित है? आप गौर से सोचेंगे तो आपको समझ में आएगा कि हम सबकी जिम्मेदारी है। एक आंकड़ा बताना चाहूंगा, एक इंसान अपने पूरे जीवन काल में 7 पेड़ के बराबर ऑक्सीजन लेता है। और यदि आपने 7 पेड़ वापस नहीं लगाए, दैट मीन्स यू आर नॉट प्लांटेशन न्यूट्रल। मतलब आपने जितनी ऑक्सीजन ली है उससे कम पेड़ लगाए हैं, ऑक्सीजन की कमी करके आप जा रहे हो इस दुनिया से। Have we ever tried thinking about these few points? वो जो नीली और पीली पैकेट, मैं नाम नहीं लूंगा, जिसमें चिप्स आती है, नाम लूंगा तो वाद विवाद की स्थिति पैदा हो जाएगी। 400 साल लगते हैं उसको डिस्पोज ऑफ होने में। पहले तो हम ये चिप्स घर पे बना के खा लेते थे, मगर आज एक अलग ही मुद्दा है। कई लोग सोच रहे होंगे कि कैपिटलिज्म का मुद्दा है, मगर उस मुद्दे पर बात करना सही नहीं होगा क्योंकि हम सस्टेनेबिलिटी पे बात करने आए हैं। So let's talk about some of the actions that the government has taken 2030. थोड़ी सी टेक्निकल होगी ये। नॉन फॉसिल फ्यूल 500 गीगावाट गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया ने डिसाइड किया है कि वो करने वाले हैं 2030 तक, नॉन फॉसिल फ्यूल। CO2 इमिशन जो है वो 1 बिलियन टन तक उसको रिड्यूस कर देना है, कम कर देना है, द कार्बन इमिशन। And the intensity of carbon emission has to be reduced by 45% by the year 2030. And there is one more commitment from Government of India, and that is the energy that we consume, that consumption has to be 50% from the renewable sources. This is the 4th commitment, and therefore the 5th commitment is to become net zero by 2070. गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया का प्लान है ये, पंचामृत कहते हैं इसे। मगर ये सारे प्लान्स क्यों बन रहे हैं? Why are we talking? Why is the government talking about all these things today? Why all of the sudden all such discussions has started emerging? We are here to discuss that. I'll talk about the problem statement. We have seen one problem statement in the video that we last saw. Temperature rise 1.5 to 1.7 to 2 degree. 2 डिग्री का टेम्परेचर बढ़ रहा है और लगभग आप देखते होंगे, गौर किए होंगे आपने, दिल्ली में देखा होगा 50 डिग्री तक टेम्परेचर पहुंच जाता है। वो 2 डिग्री और बढ़ गया, 52 डिग्री, एसी काम करना बंद कर देगा। अभी लोग परेशान हो रहे हैं यहाँ एसी की वजह से, राइट, बेचैनी हो रही है। मैंने कहा ना, इंसान के जहन में एक बेचैनी है। सी लेवल 8 इंच बढ़ गया है, समुद्र का स्तर। अभी बहुत सारे ऐसे देश हैं जहां पर कि इन्वायरमेंट, क्लाइमेट, इन चीजों के बारे में बहुत ज्यादा बातें नहीं होती क्योंकि उसका इम्पैक्ट वहां नहीं है। आंकड़ा कहता है कि सन 2100 तक दुनिया का कोई भी देश ऐसा नहीं बचेगा जहां पर कि क्लाइमेट का इम्पैक्ट नहीं होगा, दुनिया का कोई भी देश। CO2 emission is at its highest level. The number of disaster is going to increase from 400 to 560 expected by the year 2030. Heat waves will triple by 2030. Drought will increase by 30%. 1.2 billion climate refugees होंगे 2030 तक पूरी दुनिया में। और मैं आपको बता दूं, जब vulnerability, अंडर प्रिविलेज सेक्शंस की बात होती है तो डिजास्टर एक ऐसा चीज है जो कि जेंडर न्यूट्रल है, इससे सबसे ज्यादा महिलाएं प्रभावित होती हैं। अभी इंडोनेशिया के ऑफिशियल हमारे सामने बैठे थे, जो इंडोनेशिया में डिजास्टर हुआ था उसमें 70% जो लोग इम्पैक्ट हुए थे वो महिलाएं थी। सो दीज आर सम ऑफ द स्टैटिस्टिक्स, सम ऑफ द प्रॉब्लम स्टेटमेंट्स। फॉर इट्स रिड्रेसल वी ऑल आर सिटिंग एंड ट्राइंग टू डेलिब्रेट। How do we address to such problems? Globally, COP28 हुआ UAE में क्लाइमेट के मुद्दे पे। G20 की प्रेसिडेंसी भारत ने की और G20 के इस प्रेसिडेंसी में क्लाइमेट एक्शन एक खास मुद्दा था। कॉरपोरेशंस पे आते हैं जो कि आज हमारा टॉपिक है। What are the corporates doing? There is a responsibility on industries also to respond to such crises, such problem statements that we have just listened about. And therefore, corporations are also trying their bit of it. There is a transparency also today. आपने सुना होगा कई लोग जो कि इस सेक्टर से बिलोंग करते हैं कि सेबी ने मैंडेट किया है BRSR की रिपोर्टिंग, जो पहले BRR रिपोर्टिंग होती थी। BRSR is business responsibility and sustainability reporting, and there are new parameters. I have my co-panelist who will be talking about it. There's a lot of transparency that is expected from industries from last FY. And yesterday also, I also concluded my BRSR for my organization. I work for a company called Minda Corporation. Customer जो आपके हैं, we are a B2B company and our customers has got their own net zero timelines, and they are saying that if you want to be in my supply chain, then you have to be a sustainable organization. You have to be a supplier in a way that your carbon emissions are also net zero, because I have a commitment by 2030, 35, 40, and you look at my OEMs, companies like Mahindra, companies like BMW, they have their own commitments and they have to reach there. And if I have to be their supplier, we also have to become net zero, and therefore I have to look at my carbon emissions, I have to reduce it, I have to reduce my intensity, reduce, recycle, reuse, e-waste management, water management, waste management. These all things have to be done by the corporations, and we are trying to do it. How do we do it? For which I would like to first invite Dr. Shruti Sharma from TD. Shruti ji, what is the sense of business for the need of ESG
today. Over to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Praveen, and thank you so much, all of you. I think the context has already been set up by panel 1, and Mr. Praveen has set up a very good context about why is the need of ESG. Now, before starting the need of ESG, let me take you through some context. We have all spoken about the problems which all of us are facing, businesses are facing in general, and why is there a sense of urgency? All of us know about it. But let me just simplify things around. There are too many jargons here in this space, in this domain of ESG and business sustainability. So to start off what Mr. Praveen has asked me, I will start from a quote by Albert Einstein, and he said that we cannot solve our problems by the thinking we used when we created them. So when you look at the problems, I think the first panel where there was a need of conscious leadership, we've dwelt a lot on the problems due to climate change, the problem due to geopolitical crisis, the problems due to inequalities. All of us collectively as species are seeing the problems here. Now these problems, what we call come under the category of wicked problems. Now when you talk about what is a wicked problem, now the wicked problem is a problem for which you don't have a solution currently. And the dynamics changes every time you feel you're going near. So when you look at business and sustainability, again a wicked problem. I come from academic side, so I'll talk about tools and frameworks. So when you talk about Paul Heinrich, he gave with an impact equation. When he says impact is equal to population into affluence. Affluence is number of goods which used per individual into technology. So direct impact, environment impact, social impact, whatever impact you say is directly in relation to the population. That is why we talk about population. That is why we talk about 9 billion people on the planet, limited resources. You talk about affluence. That is where developed countries come in, because yes, products consumed per individual is more, their contribution is more. When you look at India, it's only 7% as our total contribution to what we call it carbon footprint. And then again, there's a lot of talks about climate equity and justice currently, which India represents. Because we are when you look at our contribution, we are nowhere there. I mean, we are not the ones who are responsible for the problems which have been there. But then, kisi desh ka carbon nahi hai. It's when you talk about it's not local warming, it's global warming is what we are dealing with currently. So that is why where we talk about the state of action. India has to act on it. India is not responsible for it, but then we have to act on it. There is a problem. And when you look at India, one of the most vulnerable countries as far as the impact of climate change is concerned. Why are we most vulnerable? Because we have majority of our population is the underprivileged lot. And when you look at climate change and when you look at the impact of climate change, there is a lot of disparity in terms of impact. So again, you can refer to what happened during COVID. I think the affluent were the ones who were sharing videos of cook and what to do and how to spend time. But the ones who were actually impacted by the COVID were the underprivileged one. So this is how the climate change has an impact. There's a lot of disparity. That is why we talk about climate equity and justice. World Economic Forum, the 2024 one, said that the top long-term risk and short-term risk, climate change, when we look at the long-term risk and even short-term risk, is one of the biggest risks our planet is facing. And we recently celebrated World Earth Day, 22nd April, and there's nothing to celebrate about. And there is a term we talk about saving the planet. Save the planet. All of us here save the planet. The planet does not need to save itself. It's the only sustainable system around. It is us we have to save as species. Homo sapiens, collectively all of us identify as sapiens, the ones who've been outlived, whatever you say, and the planet, again it's going through a 6th mass extinction. The way dinosaurs were extinct, we are also going through the 6th mass extinction. That's what the report says. Again, going to an academic founding, there's a concept known as planetary boundaries. So this was a concept which was given in 2009, and this was a lot of scientists, 29 scientists across the world came in, and they studied the condition of our planet, and they said that there are 9 planetary boundaries. And the world to have a perfect balance, if we need to work ecological balance and the balance of our survivability for us human to thrive, all these 9 planetary boundaries have to be within the limits. And last 2023, we have crossed 6 planetary boundaries out of 9 planetary boundaries. There is a concept of tipping point. Tipping point is the point of no return, where an irreversible damage in ecosystem happens. We have crossed so many tipping points. The recent being, not going into too much technicality, there was a news that flowers are blooming in Antarctica. I mean, there was a photo there. So nothing to joy of. Like, you know, when you look at flowers blooming in Antarctica, it's a cause of worry. So why are we talking about sustainability so much? We are talking about sustainability so much because our survivability is at stake. And when you look at survivability, individuals are vulnerable, organized economies are vulnerable, but businesses are the ones which are most vulnerable. And that is why when we look at businesses, there was a report by McKinsey in 2018, and they studied the lifespan of Fortune 500 companies. And while studying the lifespan, they did one in 1960, and that time it was 80 years, the lifespan of Fortune 500 companies. And in 2018-2019, it shrunk to 18 years, 18, which means most of the 75% of the Fortune 500 companies would not exist by 2030. That's the crisis when you look at businesses, since we are talking from a business perspective, where your survivability is at stake. Volatile raw material crisis, volatile energy crisis, Russia-Ukraine war. I think it's something which is one of the most sustainable wars we have seen. That's ongoing. So yeah, you see the kind of, we are having, when you look at, there is a social deficit in terms of stakeholders. Where you talk about 1960, where Milton Friedman said the business of business is only business. Now we are talking about a John Ellington approach, which talks about the stakeholder theory, that businesses have to move from the shareholder perspective to the stakeholder perspective. And that is where we see a lot of social deficit in terms of trust deficit. And that is why transparency becomes the holy grail of business sustainability. When we talk about business sustainability, how do business practice sustainability? Or let's not talk about, you know, we get a very myopic vision when we talk about sustainability. It's something to do with the environment. Yes, it has something to do with the environment, but environment is just a part of it. There is more to sustainability. There is more to continuity if we talk about. So when you talk about business continuity here, how can you keep your cash flow on? How can you control your supply chain? How can you take care of the value chain crisis which you're doing? How can you look at value creation which was spoken about? How can you do that is where what we are going to talk about here in this what I'm going to address in my talk today. Now, when we talk about, I think there was a talk about intention to action deficit. Everybody wants to practice business sustainability. Everybody is very clear. We are looking at all the problems, carbon footprint, waste, biodiversity, water, everything is on, like, you know, you've reached all the boundaries. But then how to practice it? That is a challenge. When you look at sustainability as a concept, it's a philosophical concept. Taking care of current needs without compromising the need of future. Something which I think Professor Tiwari very well, you know, encapsulated in his talk. It is a philosophy. There is too much subjectivity around this concept of sustainability, and that is where the problem happens, and that is where the challenge happens, because we don't know how to practice it. And that is where ESG is coming as one solution, as a way forward for the businesses to practice sustainability, because it gives it an objectivity. You know, it gives an objectivity to the broad subjectified, subjectiveness which is there around sustainability. So again, what is ESG? It is an analytical framework. It is a tool of non-financial parameters of a company which has the maximum financial impact. If we look at what ESG is, it is not a new term. It was coined in 2004. It was given by United Nations and few financial institutions in a report which was named as Who Cares When, which talked about responsible investing for the financial institution of the world, and that is where the term ESG was coined. Now, why are we talking today so much about it? Why didn't we talk? It's been 2004 was the first time everybody spoke about ESG. ESG as a term was used, for more from an investing purpose, looking at the business, doing a risk assurance. I think Professor Sakshi would talk about the risk parameters of ESG, looking at the firms from the risk perspective before investing, screening of the firm. Now, it took a strategic turn in post-COVID 2020 because it was seen that companies who were practicing ESG framework or who were practicing the principles, all the parameters of ESG, were the ones who were resilient, were the ones who were able to thrive. And that is where there was a proper research-led report which said that these were the firms who were resilient. So it is not about, again, when you look at ESG, it is not only about intentions, it is about outcomes. It is outcome centric. It is about understanding the impact of your organization, the inward impact which your organization has on the environment, on the social parameters, on the economic parameters, and the inward impact, we call it double materiality, going by the technical term, on the financial performance of the companies. Earlier, whatever frameworks we had, if you look at India, it was business responsibility reporting. If you look at globally, it was GRI, which was Global Reporting Initiative. These were broader guidelines, these were broader framework which spoke about the outward impact of an organization. And that is why this concept of ESG was not getting enough traction from businesses. Because for businesses, profitability matters a lot. So yes, philanthropy, CSR, everything is okay. But you need to understand that what is the financial impact on your business. And that is where you get the traction, a buying for the top management. Else, everybody knows it's a good thing to practice, but yes, let's keep it for later. Let's keep it next year, not now. Because there are costs to be incurred, and as such businesses are struggling. We all have discussed how they're struggling. So that is where ESG shows them a pathway. ESG gives them a roadmap that how do you practice this concept of business sustainability, how do you practice, how do you use these environmental parameters broadly categorized into your emission, your footprint, where we talk about a lot of things about carbon footprinting nowadays. Net zero is what Mr. Praveen spoke about. We look at from the water aspect, the water footprint becomes very important, your waste footprint becomes very important, and your biodiversity impact becomes very important because businesses do take ecosystem services. So when we are looking at companies like Nestle, we are looking at companies like ITC, we are looking at companies where your major raw material comes from the nature. You have to take care of the nature also, so that there is a direct impact on the businesses. There is a $450 billion which ecosystem services provide to businesses. So it's all been quantified. So I would not take much of the time, but I would say that ESG basically quantifies. It gives you a measurement. It quantifies the metrics. It gives you a metrics so that you can manage your business better. You can make it more sustainable because what gets measured gets managed. Thank you.
थैंक यू वेरी मच डॉक्टर श्रुति, आपने काफ़ी सिंप्लीफाई करके लोगों को बता दिया कि ये क्या फ्रेमवर्क है और इसकी आवश्यकता क्यों पड़ रही है. Since you come from an academia, I have another couple of questions before I move to Dr. Sakshi. There's a report from LinkedIn that there's a skill gap of 60% for the green skills which corporations require. In fact, I have also experienced recently, I was recruiting some sustainability professionals for my organization. I found there's a dearth of trained professionals. How are we going to address this? Since you're coming from academia, that's why I'm placing this question to you.
In fact, this has been after the World Economic Forum came up with this report, and all of us, they spoke about like the top futuristic job where green jobs after AI and tech are the second most desirable job. But yes, when you look at the green skills, there is a deficit when you look at it from the skill gap perspective, that there is a deficit and not much institutions are the ones who are providing. There are very few institutions who have been pioneering on providing. I would not advertise about my university here, but yes, TERI is one of the pioneers institution where we have 1824 courses. But yes, let's leave that aside. When you look at green jobs, now we need to understand what green jobs are. I think in a way, anything and everything which is being done in a business, on the business activity or an economic activity which you perform, which in turns mitigates or lowers your environmental and social impact, comes under green job. So when you look at it from a green job perspective, again from a strategic perspective also, if we are oriented towards an ESG, whatever we do, whatever processes we do, even when you look at basic processes in your manufacturing, your operations, if you through your operations you're bringing your carbon footprint down, or you're looking at your water consumption, you're bringing it down, and you're doing it, that will come under green jobs. So sustainability management professionals, yes, there have been a lot of work under green hydrogen, there's a lot of required in those tech domains where carbon capture storage, the negative emissions technologies, from the tech part, from the digital part where you're looking at integrating the sustainable practices to the technology part. The eco-tech part is also, there is a lot of jobs here in that. From the HR part also, there are a lot of skills when you look at HR from this, where you look at the social impact perspective, measuring the social impact. So I would just like to say that we can practice green jobs, and it is we should not look at it as a vertical, but something horizontal which is integrated across the functions, across organizations.
Sure, thank you very much. See, I think we need to have a lot of change communication among the aspirants also, I believe. I mean, if I have to ask here that how many of the students sitting here would like to take up this profession, how many of you want to become a green manager? Can you raise your hands? See, in this big house, just 3 or 4 hands are there. So thank you. That talks about the statistics, and we require hundreds of TERI kind of institutions in India to look at such issues that we have. We respect your university a lot, but there is very less number of students that one TERI can produce, right? So we need more. So anyways, I'll come back to you, Dr. Shruti. Before that, I'll go to Dr. Sakshi. When organizations are practicing ESG, there are challenges in its implementation that has been observed. Would you like to talk about that?
So thank you, Dr. Shruti, for giving us a global sensible system about sustainability. Let me give you my viewpoint, because I come from the domain of finance and I talk a bit more about numbers. And when you look at the numbers, let me give you a few examples. So for instance, we might think and we might say that, okay, we do not care for now, let us see in the longer run. So I want to give you examples of how in the shorter run there have been detrimental effects on companies and on organizations and even on countries at large. So one of the examples is the Thailand 2011 floods. Now if you look at what happened in that flood, was that the government had given some subsidies for palm and rubber cultivation, which made the soil pretty loose, and a few years later there were massive floods. Now Thailand was a growing textile country and a nation that was very heavily dependent on textile. And in those few years that followed the flood in 2011, the textile industry dropped down by 28%. So that was probably some sort of a government inaction that put the society and the country at large at such a big risk. The second thing that I want to focus is on the governance factor. And a lot of us, being financial experts, we think about let us just ignore the long-term impact and let's see the short-term focus on EPS or the rise in earnings, or the bottom line that we talk about, the net profit or the net income. And now there are examples of putting such immense focus on EPS, on just short-term earnings. So let me give you 2 examples here. So in 1999, there was a CFO magazine that used to come up with awards every year. So in 1999, the CFO magazine of US gave an award to Scott Sullivan of WorldCom. Now this fellow, cut to 2001, filed for Chapter 11 under bankruptcy. So imagine the state that where a fellow receiving the best CFO award in another 2 years is filing for bankruptcy for his company. What happened in those 2 years? There was a major financial fraud, accounting loopholes. Another example, 2000, the year 2000, the same magazine gave another award to Arthur Andersen and Andrew Fastow. Now, if you know who Andrew Fastow was, he was the guy who was behind the biggest Enron scandal of 2001. Another year later, the company filed for bankruptcy, and we all know what happened. So Arthur Andersen and Andrew Fastow together had, unearthed major billions of frauds. Had unearthed major scams. So, if you look at these numbers, so something tickles our mind, and that is that if you just focus on the short-term earnings, that could be detrimental to your company in the longer run. The second thing is that when we talk about climate and the climatic risks, we've seen that the greenhouse gas emissions have been going up, and there's a global rise in temperatures, and we all know about it, and the governments at large have started recognizing it. There are counter arguments that say that it is not happening, but yes, of course, if we if we accept it, and if we do not accept, even in that case, the governments are giving out their policies related to it. Now, these extreme events, what happens under these extreme events is that because the environment becomes so volatile, the countries that are extremely vulnerable are the countries that are still developing, that are at the lower end, or the low and the lesser developed countries. Now, for these countries, the impact of these climatic risks is much, much higher. And for them, they are pushed down further, into, they go into a downward spiral of lowering global, downward spiral of macroeconomic or fiscal risk. And, they just are, they're pushed towards the back end of poverty. Now, if that is the case, what happens? The government comes out with policies, because this has real world implications. And, alright, so these are two things that particularly forces us to think about ESG and what all is going around the, the sustainability parameters. The third thing I'd like to talk about is the risk associated with these climatic and these, sustainability parameters. The first kind is of the first kind of risk that we should know, or that it is that does play at the backdrop, is the transitional risk. So the rise of EV vehicles, unless you are not really aware and you're not changing your company's way of working or innovation, you're not innovating, there's going to be a transitional risk. So there are going to be disruptions, just like coming up of EV vehicles. The second thing is that, after the transitional risk happens, so because there are so many disruptions that happens, they do disrupt your business. Nokia could not, innovate, and so it ended up. And they also end up in terms of numbers, in terms of the profits. The second example I'd like to give you is about Coca-Cola. So way back in 2004, Coca-Cola regarded, because it is one of the largest, 24th largest consumer of water in the world. So way back in 2004, it had to shut down its plant, one of its plant in Madhya Pradesh, just because of the lack of water. Now you see, for a company like Coca-Cola, this runs into billions of dollars. It's such a big consumption and producer of water. So, if you push ESG at the backwaters, just like they were pushed a decade ago, it also shows up in terms of numbers in the longer run. The third thing that I'd like to, focus on or tell you about is just a bit of my concern. Because in the last, decade or 2 decades, we can say, the first report that came up about ESG was Who Cares Wins, as just Shruti pointed out. And this report talked about ESG at large. But one thing it did not talk about was how to measure it, how to measure environmental, social, and governance. Now, since there was not any particular way or methodology of measuring it, so came a bunch of methodologies. And there came a lot of private players and a lot of independent agencies that said, okay, we are going to give you an ESG certification, or we are going to we're going to say that, okay, you are green. And just because these private players started coming up, there was a whole system, that a whole nexus was made. What really concerns me, or it really troubles me at the at the heart of it, is because if this has such a massive real world implication, where is the methodology or a proper standardized methodology to measure your ESG scores? We come out with scores. There are private players like Sustainalytics, Bloomberg, that come out with its own metrics. Some say we give us metrics on 22 parameters. Some say we give our metrics on 30 parameters, some on 34. And if you see, if Bloomberg puts a particular company in the top 5%, another company would put that company at the bottom 20% of the ESG score. So where is the the balance? Where is the problem? Is that there is no proper way of measuring it, and that is where these at the macro level, if you see, there are countries, and we are still developing, and there are countries that say, okay, if you use our patent, we are going to give you a green certificate, but if you use our patent, you also have to pay us. So there is a whole system that evolves, and that's a nexus that evolves. So I'm just a bit concerned about the measurement of ESG and how this whole system is going to play out in the future. But at the outset, I would like to also say that eventually we have all started realizing that this is an important part of an organization, and it is also being shown in terms of finances and financial metrics. So if you look at companies that are more ESG friendly or lesser ESG friendly, definitely companies which are more ESG friendly perform better, and there are investors who are willing, there are venture capitalists and private equity players who are willing to invest in companies that are clean tech or that follow those ESG parameters. Thank you.
बहुत बढ़िया, thank you very much, Dr. Sakshi. Before I go to my third panelist, co-panelist, Ms. Shama Jain, I have one question. आपने देखा होगा, आप चूँकि finance वाले background से आपने कहा कि आप आती हैं, कॉर्पोरेट के बजट होते हैं, हर डिपार्टमेंट का बजट होता है. ESG बजट बोल के कोई हेड नहीं बना हुआ है. What is your view on that?
I think the CSR head is still there, and a lot of companies are putting some of their profits into CSR, which is a good, you can say, starting point. But yes, ESG itself, I think just, realizing that, realizing the importance of ESG is more than enough. I think if all of us pledge together, just as we did today, that right from, making all our, sourcing of raw materials to the entire value chain, if we are greening it, I think that is more than enough, and it will show in terms of numbers. Why are we always looking for regulations if we all are so aware of it? If we know and we talk about so much pressure being put on earth, I think all the companies are aware about their role as a business organization. And if that is there, I think there are certain norms, as Shruti talked about, the MSCI and the new indexes that are there. And the companies know that these disclosures are now mandatory, and they have to make them, and tell the people that yes, they're doing sustainability rights.
मैं शमा जैन जी के पास आ रहा हूँ, मगर मैं आपको एक चीज़ बताना चाहूँगा. आपने कहा कि लोग अवेयर नहीं हैं. ट्रैफिक के लाल बत्ती पे यदि फाइन ना हो तो हम लोग भी ना रुकें. ये हमारी आदत हो गई है. हम फाइन के डर से रुकते हैं. इस वजह से कई बार exactly, you have to have regulations, and therefore there are regulations also coming out. We looked at the BRSR thing. I'm sure in the coming years the sustainability reporting is also going to be probably mandated for maybe top 100 or 500 companies listed in Bombay Stock Exchange.
No,
that is for BRSR. I'm saying that the sustainability reporting would also be mandated on later on. Okay. So I'm saying that might also come in another couple of years, the way like this entire discussion has
just one point
maturing. Yeah.
So sorry, I know we are positive, just one, because it's very valid to your question. So I was consulting a very big firm. It's one of the market leaders, and I was making a first sustainability reporting for the firm. Yes, ma'am, the bottle which you're drinking, that firm, Bisleri. So I made while making the first sustainability report. Now what happened was exactly the question which you said, that when you look at ESG, and it is more looked at like a compliance thing, and it's something like an obligatory measure, and yes, you have to do this. And the company at that time was going through, there was some kind of Tata Group was planning to buy, this was a year and a half ago, and this was just a hygiene measure that out of compliance, they had to make a sustainability report, so I was engaged in. So when I looked at it, yes, it came under CSR, and that is why the board of management was not looking at this, because yes, again, as I said, vertical में आता है, budget allocation नहीं है, कभी HR में आ जाता है, कभी marketing में आ जाता है, depending upon. But it has to have more of a strategic perspective. So once the company looked at it from a strategic perspective, as all these changes then started flowing in. When actually, because they were looking at a buying and then they said, now we need to have, and that is my first meeting was there with the CXOs, and the legal said, why should we invest? Why should we go this? The marketing said, it's just a report which we have to create. Why should we talk about the water footprint? Why should we talk about our energies? So that is what happened. But at the end of the day, the company, though that thing didn't happen, but it took a course where now they're talking about water credits and all. Yeah. So the board of management has to get in here now.
True, very true. The corporations now, I would say that they have started looking at it, and we have a way to go. But there are many organizations who have done a lot of good works, and Hindustan Zinc is one of them. So Ms. Shama Jain, who is the Deputy Head of Sustainability at Hindustan Zinc Limited, Vedanta. Ma'am, I would like to request you if you can share that how the journey of ESG was started by your organization and why did you start it? I mean, when things were not mandated, CSR is a mandatory thing. And you know, this is something that is to be done beyond the fences, but this is something which has to be done within the fences. And there are processes to be changed, operations to be modified, green manufacturing to be introduced, capex to be spent, finances to be allocated. So why your organization looked at it and why have you done it?
Right. Thank you so much. And I actually feel like I'm kind of representing a diversity over here, because all of you are present over here who is building the skills, and I represent a company which is a Hindustan Zinc company. It's a mining company, and that actually is implementing whatever that you are learning, the skill that you are building, that is actually implementing that on a shop floor. So how we are implementing that, I definitely not have that. I don't agree with that. You need not to have the separate budget for the ESG. ESG is something which is actually integrated as a core part of your business, right? Whatever that you are doing, it's actually a part of the business itself. Be it, you are doing anything for the operational efficiency improvement, that's a part of the business. So there is no need to have a separate budget for the ESG. It's actually a part of the business itself. Whatever when you are investing, be it any kind of a capital allocation, if you are taking ESG into consideration, or ESG, when I say, it's about that if any of the project that I'm investing in, that actually going to lead a reduction in my pollution, reduction in my energy consumption, reduction in my water consumption, reduction in my waste consumption, that actually means a part of my business only. That's a business case for me, right? I just wanted to tell you the example that, ESG is nothing new for the Vedanta like a company, and Hindustan Zinc like the company we are. The philosophy of zero harm, zero waste and zero discharge, it was created way back by our chairman, Mr. Anil Agrawal, right? So, and a lot many of the initiatives that we are doing, brand building is one that, in terms of ESG, we are making a brand buildings, like you said, share the examples of the Bloomberg. So in the DJSI ranking, we are, as Hindustan Zinc, we are the #1 leading company in metal and mining sector. And how did that happen? It's not just reporting, because whatever that you report, you have to have those systems in place. Then only you are able to generate those data, and then only you are able to report those numbers. So you have to have those practices in place. And also the example that Dr. Shruti, you shared, that the double materiality concept, how we are using that concept into the industry, that also need to be understood, right? How we are using that system, because through that double materiality, we are actually identifying the risk to the business, and then taking the actions according to that. We are taking the targets, the SBTi targets, we have already taken and set up the targets that we are going to reduce our GHG consumption, GHG emissions by 50% by 2030. So we have already taken that target, and all our actions are aligned to that. So ESG practices are not just helping us in making the profits also. These are actually sometimes helps us like a boon also. I just share the example that we are basically Hindustan Zinc is headquartered at Udaipur. I think everybody is knowing what Udaipur is known for. Udaipur is known for its lake. What we are doing, because we are in Rajasthan. Rajasthan is known for its water scarcity. We are treating the entire sewage of Udaipur city and using that treated water back into the operation and reducing our dependencies on the fresh water by 36%. So that's the initiative that we are doing. It's not that business is not doing anything. They are doing a lot of efforts. That's a business case also. When in the year 2018-19 there was a drought-like a situation in the Rajasthan, and we were not allowed to take the water even from our captive dams. So that Udaipur STP water that actually has helped us like anything, and that our business continuity was maintained because of that particular initiative. there is a lot of talk around the climate change. So as an organization, we are also into that climate change. Our overall energy requirement is around 550 megawatt, and we are already signed up the PDA agreement with the Serentica Renewables that we are going to completely shift to the renewable energy by the December 2026 or so. So it's a process, it's a phase-wise process that comes into the picture. The challenge also, there is a similar challenge that companies are also facing, right? We have already taken a commitment that we are going to invest 1 billion on complete transition from the conventional diesel vehicle to the electrical vehicles in the underground mines. Is it really possible? We are not getting any of the vendor who can provide us that much of massive, we have around 900 fleets, and we are not being able to get that fleet, even though we have the budget committed, we have the financials available to us, but we are not being able to, complete that because we don't have the suppliers, we don't have the technologies, We wanted to shift to the green hydrogen also, but we don't have the clear technologies as of now which is available to us. Similarly, when we say as an organization, we are also committed to the diversity. We are looking at 30% of the diversity. And when we say diversity, it's not just the gender diversity, we are looking at the special ability people, we are looking at the transgenders people also. But is the society ready for them? We have already, raised a lot of job announcement for the transgenders, but then nobody is turning up around, So I think it's not that every time we have to blame the industry itself. There is a lot of challenges because they wanted to implement this also, because it's, rightly mentioned by you, the business of the business is doing the business only, but to be very, very honest, ESG, all the initiatives that we are taking into the ESG parameters or the ESG aspect, they are actually long-term solutions for us. We cannot run the business if we are not implementing the practices in place, which is in turn helping us, We cannot store a lot of waste until and unless we are not going to have the waste minimization in place, the waste reduction in place, recycling of the waste initiatives. If we are not going to take those initiatives in place, nobody is going to give us the land to store that much amount of the waste, right? So it's a business case for us. We have to have the solutions in place. But subjected to that, these initiatives or these technical solutions are available to us. So, I definitely want to conclude it over here, but yes, as everybody said that, the climate change, the global warming, and it's no more a buzzword, it's no more a forecast that we are going to, these would be the situations or so. It is something which is happening right now also. And together, it's the academics, it's industries, it's government. I think this is something that everybody should be, working together to meet that. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shama. I think the last thing that you told about the collaboration which is required for this entire agenda to pick up and to grow and to become mature, that's something very critical. Let me summarize. I had many questions with my co-panelists, but they're looking at me and my time is completed, so I have to stop here. Let me conclude it. What did we learn? We understood about the present scenario. We looked at the problem statements. We have seen the statistics, how alarming this is today for all of us, just not India, but globally this is one of the agenda which is picking up. Why? Because the problem statement has to be addressed and the solutions are there with us, and we are trying our bit of it. Well, Dr. Shruti talked about the survivability concept, and she also talked about the lifespan of the corporations, which has shrunken from 80 years to 18 years, you said, right? That's one of the studies, and if this 80 has to again go back to 80 or go more, so ESG is the concept what Shamaji just talked about, that your organizations is making profit because of ESG, this thing. And you also talked about the non-financial disclosure for the financial impact. Yes, so the financial impact is expected. This is something that we have to, wherever we go, I mean, professionals who are going to be budding professionals from here and going to go to any corporate, let them know that ESG is not an, it's just not a cost center. It's an investment for future, which will fetch benefit to you. Dr. Sakshi talked about standardization of the parameters, because there is no clear-cut framework today, and somebody is reporting on some parameters, somebody is reporting on more parameters, so there has to be more standardizations and transparency, and we believe that the frameworks, the rules, the SOPs that the government is putting up, that is also a need of the hour. Well, Shamaji has talked about integrated as a core part of the business, that is all about ESG. It's not something isolated concept, it's a part of the business. When we talk about CSR, generally we talk about the 2%, but this is about the balance 98%, that how do we operate. It's just not about reporting. You mentioned बहुत सारे certifications हैं जो मिल जाते हैं, you get that, but it's just not about that, but there's many other things that you have to do. So we learned good concepts and practices that you have done at your organization. So thank you very much to all of you. I don't know, do we have time for questions? Do we have time for questions? No. Okay. We'll have to conclude it here. देखिए, बहुत सारे मुद्दे हैं क्लाइमेट को लेकर के, सस्टेनेबिलिटी को लेकर के. आप अपने देश को ही देखते हैं, अंडमान निकोबार के बारे में कहा जा रहा है कि 2075 में अंडमान निकोबार डूबने वाला है. क्या हमारी मुहिम हो सकती है कि हम उसे बचा लें? And if there can be a campaign for that at JNU from the student, the mass of the students of JNU, that could be one of the communication I like to make here. Can you save Andamans? Okay, think about it. Maybe with this conference that we are doing, pick up some of the agenda on which we would like to address to the problem statement. मैं कई forums में जाता रहता हूँ और कई बार एक चीज़ कहता हूँ जो यहाँ भी कहूँगा. हिमालय पिघल रहा है, देश जल रहा है, इंटेलेक्चुअल का डिबेट एसी में चल रहा है. Let this not be a debate in this AC room only. Let it to be an action. Thank you very much to all of you for being here in this panel. Thank you to my co-panelists. Over to you.
Thank you to all our panelists for engaging session, for sharing your valuable insights, your expertise, and the greatly enriched our understanding of the ESG and the significance of ESG. So I would like to invite R.S. Kathuria. Do we have R.S. Kathuria with us here?
Next.
No. So I would like to request Mr. Jagbandhu Banerjee to felicitate. To felicitate our chairperson of the session, Mr. Praveen Kaur.
Sir, please. Please,
Thank you. Now I would like to.
Please, sir.